People can come in as we do this. So, shall we? Yeah, unfair to the people who arrive early, right? You want to come on stage? Okay. I got to tell this kid things all the time, you know. So, for the, not sure, it's a mixed bag of feelings that I have, but this whole journey started at dinner table, where it was compulsory, all my children come for dinner unless they are exempted. And at dinner table, there were 3 conversations going on every day. It's sustainability, sustainability, and sustainability. This is a result of a dinner table. Anyway, today's topic on circularity and waste, somehow, by mere coincidence, and I promise you this, that both of us ended up in this journey, very different areas, but yet circularity and waste to energy and more. So what we're going to do is, we are a small crowd, we've got 1 hour, we are late, we could finish it early if you all think so. Vinesh will do a quick presentation and then followed by me, and I'm not sure about Vinesh, but for me, when I'm doing my presentation, you can interrupt me anytime you want to ask your questions. And then we will have a really interactive session. If you all have any questions, any comments, any scenarios that you want to pose to us, and if you could think about these scenarios so that you can pose in a business like this, where we are doing this, what would be the aspects of circularity, and we'll be happy to try and take on that challenge and see whether we can meet it adequately and appropriately. So yeah, Vinesh is my eldest son. He is 34 years old. He's been having FatHopes since 13 years ago. And I'll give it up and let him do the rest of this. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't sit, I've got to stand. So, thank you very much everyone for being present. We'll start. I think before I comment, the purpose and the question that we need to answer that continues to be the motivation factor for circularity is really important, right? And for me, the one thing that keeps me up at night and really does my mind in is how we can have an ever-growing economic system, an insatiable appetite for growth in the economic system, while we have a finite ecosystem. That formula, to me, doesn't work. And the most intelligent people, for some reason, think that that's still okay. For our generation, we can see the nuances or the effects of that continued behavior, and we need to do something about it. So think about that. In everything that we do, try to position it from that perspective. How can I continue to grow when resources are limited? And not just resources being limited, we are not fully utilizing the resources that we have. So that's a question that I keep with me in every one of our problem-solving endeavors. Before I go into, so the slides are about FatHopes Energy, and that's not the purpose today. The purpose is to instill and to instigate the thought of circularity. But maybe it'll be appropriate for me to share how I started. 15, 16 years ago, my dad decided to give me my first car, which was a 20-year-old Pajero, which was not very fancy. While I was in international school and my friends were driving a brand new 3 Series and an S40, I was driving an old 20-year-old Pajero. However, I was an avid follower of Top Gear, Jeremy Clarkson of Top Gear. And 2 years before I got the car, there was one episode of Jeremy Clarkson putting used cooking oil into a red Mercedes and driving it from London to Brighton on the show. And at the end of the show, because he's a real petrol head, the car died. And for me, I found the perfect way, I thought, to kill that Pajero in hopes of a new car. Sadly, that didn't happen. right? And here I am today. So I did experiment with that Pajero. I put used cooking oil into the car from eateries that we frequent. The car did die, however, temporarily, because the chicken waste and the food waste was in the fuel line. I bled the fuel line, I drained the system, I cleaned the fuel filter. Again, side topic, we used to do a lot of off-roading and outdoor activities, and that's how I had the aptitude to do that. And the car ran from that point on 50% used cooking oil and 50% diesel. That was during the climate of oil being 140 US dollars a barrel, right? Late 2008, 2009. And I was in Form 5 equivalent. Instead of doing what every other student does, I ran a small little cottage industry operation at the back of my house, or back of his house, heating used cooking oil up over the stove, filtering it with my t-shirt, and blending it, 1 part diesel, 1 part used cooking oil, and running my car on it. And the main reason that kept me at it was the 50% savings, economic savings, right? So my fuel bill halved because I was being paid to take the used cooking oil away, and I was not needing to buy fuel. And that slowly propagated while I was in my last year of school here, to a friend's dad who ran a bus kilang service. And same thing for him. He was looking for a cost-cutting measure. It was nothing to do with green. And I think this is the second big point that I want to make today. Less is more, right? If we have an economic impetus to do something, buy-in is a lot easier. And that's why for us, economic, social, and environmental sustainability in that said order is extremely important. We can't depend on tree-hugging behavior for us to save the planet. We need to be economically viable, and not just viable, we need to be extra profitable as compared to the ones that are polluting. That's my belief, at least. And FatHopes Energy over the past 13 years has proven that if you do the right thing, you can be extremely profitable comparatively in the commodity market. So, getting into it, FatHopes Energy was established in 2010. We've been around for 13 years. We collect used cooking oil. We convert used cooking oil, as I told you, for my car. It initially was for road traffic fuels. Then it went to maritime. Today, since 2019, we've been supplying the aviation industry. So all of these articles that you read about sustainable aviation fuel, 90% of all feedstock going into sustainable aviation fuel globally comes from us. And that's just because the market's really small, right? It's not that we're big. So questions of why and what are we doing? We don't realize that all of us have a footprint, multiple different types of footprints, right? And used cooking oil, we've got a 2.5 kilo per day footprint with used cooking oil. And it's, instead of it causing us benefit, it's been causing us harm, right? So a lot of these slides, I think we all know why we're here and the purpose. But yeah, the energy mix today is still predominantly fossil. And again, this goes back to economics, right? It's more profitable, it's cheaper for us to be able to produce it from, it's funny, the dirtier it is, the more profitable it is, and more accessible it is, right? And that's solely because the abundance of energy in these materials are a lot higher. So if you look at a cubic meter of any material, the highest energy content or kilojoule content per cubic meter will generally be fossil. And then it gets less and less from there. And that's where the efficiency losses are, or the economic disadvantages are. Bringing it back a little bit more to home, we've seen a swing in energy, in renewable energy adoption. Early IPPs, so we had a lot more renewables prior to IPP arrangements. And since IPP arrangements came around, the amount of renewables that have been produced are dropping. And then we see, again, in 2016, large-scale solar voltaic. So my point in this slide is that economics and policy drives adoption. And us within our organizations, it's not just government policies that drive adoption, it's company policies as well, which I believe is the first point for us to instigate change, right? This is to show how in a transitionary environment where we are today, how something that is fossil-based but is cleaner, so the less of the evil starts to take off, right? And that you see natural gas going off through the roof. But this has not factored geopolitical issues. And we all know what happened 2 years ago between Russia and Ukraine, which has dropped natural gas adoption. Bringing it back to what we do, we consume, the world consumes about 220 million metric tons of cooking oil a year of various different types. Palm being one of the biggest producers from Malaysia, from Indonesia. And here is again another nuance which I want to leave with you so that you can see it from a bigger perspective, right? Whenever Malaysia or Indonesia is slammed for deforestation, for the inefficiencies of palm, our retort is that we produce the most amount of volume of cooking oil per hectare comparatively to every single other one of the options. That is true, but we forget that people don't plant soybean for soybean oil. People don't plant rapeseed for rapeseed oil. They plant these two crops for meal, for soybean. Basically, our tofu comes from soybean, and the byproduct is oil, right? So soybean technically, from that perspective, is way more efficient than palm, because palm is a monocrop, it's a single produce, and it's solely cooking oil. Now, I'm not anti-palm. That's just a fact. No, it's fine. I mean, thank you. Agreed. Thank you. No, I am. Um, so I do agree with what you've said, for sure. But my point is that it's multi-product, right? And palm is multi-product. You're right. Um, the mass balance is where we look at, right? So if from a carbon perspective, if you're measuring from a biofuels perspective, mhm. Mulching. Mhm. No, it's okay, it's okay. Please, I mean, I started with it should be an open conversation. Thank you for that. But yeah, it needs to be looked at from a life cycle perspective is really the point I wanted to make, right? So moving on the used cooking oil part of the business, there's a lot of it that's unrecovered today. Up until today, about 92.4% of households especially do not recycle this material. And that's where we have come in and run surveys to understand how we can make this more applicable or easier for households to adopt it. And here we come to why use cooking oil, right? So without it being properly disposed or without a proper supply chain to it, there are a lot of damages that it causes, not just within buildings, but also for waterways, and it pollutes soils, which has been relatively rampant. And in many parts of the world, a lot of the used cooking oil is actually recycled back either into animal feed or in extreme cases back into human consumption, which is where it poses a health threat. Now, with us, we've seen a steady growth in the recovery of these materials for the purposes of biofuels production, as I mentioned, and the benefits that or the opportunity that we see across the region is really using Malaysia as the hub for the waste and residue aggregation in support of the palm industry, right? Because it being a material that is acceptable but derived from palm, originating from palm, gives an impetus for the consuming nations or the mandated nations to use or identify it as a material that they want to use. So the opportunity again, in terms of the number of people or the population across the greater Southeast Asia, we believe that there is up to about 12 million tons that is not recovered today for the purposes of biofuels use that can be had into multiple different industries and applications. We're growing that if it goes beyond just Southeast Asia to Asia or the Yongtze Circle, the 4,000 kilometer radius across Asia. That number grows all the way to between 32 and 58 in terms of what's recoverable. And the way we look at it is it's really about streamlining the supply chain from currently something that is not very organized, and we like to use this as the analogy versus cables like that, but really streamlining a supply chain, building up a supply chain that everyone can participate within and can use as a methodology to not just channel it towards the right use, but if it is not disposed towards biofuel application, then what's the next alternate disposal mechanism, which today there isn't very many other options. So as we've been speaking about, I think that unification of the supply chain of industry is pertinent. Understanding each other's challenges and trying to find the middle path is where I think there's a big opportunity. And for us to be able to prove that these materials are sustainable and are really less polluting or less impactful, we need to have a good traceability system. And today we have a real-time digitized solution that is able to track every single kilo, where it's been collected from and where it originated from and where is it going. That has enabled the entire supply chain to be certified by several different certification bodies, but we go a little bit beyond that because we are preemptive instead of retrospective. A lot of certification processes are retrospective at the end of the year. For us, we provide our clients and the use case markets with the proof of sustainability prior to it being even burnt. So we look at it from the perspective of how we can create, like I said, the consolidation centers, which is part of the supply chain, and we've grouped them into three broad categories, right? So it's a combination between software, hardware, and really an observation dashboard, whether it's for authorities, whether it's for certification bodies, or whether it's even for the end users, where I think the marrying of all those components create the opportunity for a viable stream of energy source. So yeah, that brings me to the end. Join us on this journey, and thank you for your attention. Again, thank you very much for the comment.
So, from palm oil to pig farms, are you ready? um, my journey has been slightly different. What we do, hey, how come you skipped all the slides on global warming? Damn, that's the reason. See, you see, kids do this to you. I've got slides on global warming, so I got to go first, and then he skips all of it. Well, anyway, all of you know what was going to happen there, so we don't preach the converted. So for me, we run this firm called Habitat Enviro, and what we do is, I felt that this would make the most impact, is that we look at a business as usual, and we look at the weakest links or the challenges in that business as usual. And then we go into creativity box, and we innovate a sustainable solution for it. And then we plug that gap in the business as usual with a sustainable solution, with the aim, the intent of making that business as usual more viable than it was. That's what Habitat Enviro does. So let me just take you through one example. And as I said, for those who came after we started, please, we are going to have an interactive session because this is a workshop. Sunita did remind me a few times. And after I finish my presentation, we'll spend 20 minutes or so with any one of you coming up with a problem statement to say, in this business where this type of activity lies, what would be circularity ideas, or how do we close the loop? We'll be happy to take that challenge and try to see whether we can address it. If he can't, I'll try, then I'll be better than him. So, yeah, I'll skip through all this. We thought about it. So this is not telling you about what our logo means, but the message behind here is that from the day we started the company, we started on the platform of thinking through design circularity before we start any initiative. So the thought is that this journey must take this path. And that would make a lot of things easier. That was our first lesson and our first takeaway, to think about what we want to do through the lens of circularity before we started at design stage. So what we did is we looked at problems, and our problem, the problem we looked at, the area we looked at post-COVID was animal farms. Cattle, chicken, and swine. They are areas of business that cause a lot of environmental damage, upstream and downstream. But it's often overlooked because they produce food. So they've got some sort of a subsidy on criticism, so to say. And we looked at it and we did the same thing. How do we plug in a sustainable solution to make the entire business more viable? And we came up, we didn't invent anything. We looked hard and we looked far and we looked wide for suitable solutions which we could combine to come up with a superior result, where the ethos was 1 + 1 is 11. And we came up with a suite of solutions. I love this one. I can comb my hair, no, not my hair, but somebody else can comb their hair on this mirror looking like river. It's dead. It's dead because the pig farms are upstream. And the Pachi who lives near here say my relatives don't visit me. They refuse to come and see me. Socio-cultural problem, and this was the result. This was the solution given. Close the farms. Close the chicken farms too. Close the cow farms. Stop eating. It didn't make sense. We needed to find a solution. So what we did is we took cognizance of what the United Nations directions were, and we ensured that every one of these P's were exhibited in our project. All the 5 pillars, hoping they are not, but hoping to be equally balanced. It's tough. It's very difficult to balance them equally. But we looked at people, planet, and prosperity as prime targets first, because we reckon that peace and partnership, slightly beyond our control, but partnerships would happen organically if these 3 were in place. So we took cognizance, we took aim, and we proceeded. And I will run you through this circular system of what we did based on the problem. So the first part starts with the farmers. Now, in Malaysia, I'm not sure if you know, but even if the zone is designated to be agricultural, you can't do swine farming. You can do cattle, you can do chicken, you can do anything else, but not swine farming. Swine farming got a special designation called PFA, pig farming areas, and all the farms from all over the countries were grouped together and pushed into one area with no infrastructure. So they took small little problems from everywhere and put them together and caused a mega boom problem. That's what they did. And this problem is 30 years old, right? So there were 65 farmers in a place called Kampong Selamat, north of the border of Penang, bordering Kedah. And these 65 farmers were facing now nothing like they've ever faced, they're going to face, because in the state election, PN just won. And I think the representative is from PAS, so God help them. So, but we are moving ahead with the solution, and we think we can mitigate the issue. So there were 65 of them. So the first thing we did is we put in some in-farm logistics. In-farm logistics means the last drain where we can collect the waste, a sump, a pump, and a tank on wheels, okay? And an auto gate, and the remote was with us. That gate, we didn't want to go into his farm, so we'll open the gate, land the empty tank, haul the full tank, and all this was operated on an app. As the tank got full, we got notification of it. And from the farm, the logistics would carry the waste. The waste comes in pig dung and dead pigs to a biogas center, to our mitigation center, which was a 10-acre piece of land with all the components on it. This project has not yet happened, in case many of you are going to ask me. It's in the approval stage from the Penang state government. But they are very supportive of it, because Penang state government earns a lot of money from every type of animal farming, including swine farming. From the biogas, out came very fertile, rich, nutritious organic fertilizer, which was chemically no more active, right? It had gone through the biogas system. Now, however, I was told from my friends in the Department of Environment that I will not get an EIA approval if I'm unable to show what I'm going to do with the slurry. You won't believe this. I can't believe it standing here speaking to all of you. I tried to offer several solutions, like putting it in oil palm estate, using it only for landscape plants? The answer was no, no, and no, because there would be, number one, no control over this slurry, and it could be used for vegetable. And I just love this part of the conversation with the DG, with the Deputy DG of DOE North. And so I asked him, you are the Deputy DG of Environment Department, tell me what I should do with it. You know what he said to me? He said, put a pipe, take it a quarter of a kilometer out to sea and release it. So I said, I'll pretend I didn't hear that, thank you very much, you know. I'll see what I can do with this slurry, but I want to ask you one question before I go, and this is not about how smart I am or how witty I am, it's about sanity check, guys. I asked him, do you eat vegetables, sir? Do you know what fertilizer they've used in the vegetable you just ate last night? He asked me to leave the room. Now this is the same guy who retired. I chased this EIA for about 4.5 years. He retired, but he kept in touch. And when I got the EIA finally, he called me. And he said, Sinha, you know what? You're like a cockroach. So I said, thank you. I said, why did you say that? He said, you know what? It's not bad. Only the cockroaches survived in Hiroshima. And I have never seen somebody chasing for an EIA for 4.5 years. Finally, you got it. You're like a cockroach. So I said, I'd rather be a cockroach for the betterment of environment than a human being that damages it, sir. Thank you very much. But we've become good friends. The slurry then went to a solid liquid separation, and all the power used in all of this was coming from the biogas, by the way. We consumed about 15% of our own power generated. And then the solid liquid separation, and I had to do this, and I'll tell you why. He wouldn't let me use this. Finally, I got permission. I got approval when I had to give him proof that I was going to export every bit of this fertilizers. Therefore, I couldn't export water. I had to separate it, and I had to export the solid. And I was getting 50 cents Malaysian for 1 kilo of this fertilizer here. And when he wouldn't let me export it, I had to reach out to my network in the area, in the region. And I found a good friend in Cambodia who was farming organic rice for the Organic Rice Consumers Association in Japan. They were farming it in Cambodia. A Japanese guy would sit there and ensure no pesticide and insecticides and chemical fertilizers goes into that rice. Okay? And his farm was restricted because he couldn't get consistent quality, quantity, and price for organic fertilizer. And I was going to, this plant will produce 20 tons a day. So I said to him that I have this, would you want it? He said, yeah, even if you have 200 tons a day, I will take it. You know, I said, no, I only got 20 tons. So will you take it? He said, yes. And I asked him, how much would you pay for it? He said, I don't know if it's worth your while because you got to ship it here and I can't pay you too much money because my price of selling to the Japanese is controlled. I said, no, you just tell me how much. And he said, no, it's not very much. I said, tell me, and he said, I'll give you 50 cents. I said, 50 cents US? And he said, yeah. In Cambodia, we deal with US. So I said, thank you very much. So the moral of the story is you just have to do good to get good. That's it, without any doubt. Put the solid in the binder, dryer, and the bagging area, bag them, and put them into a container and export them. And so this circularity ends with rice cultivation, okay? And then the liquid, we use something called an aerated constructed wetlands, which is a biomimicry of what nature does. You ever wondered? Plants die, animals die, fruits drop, animals have got dropping in the jungle, but the water in the river is super clean and sweet. That's nature for you. But it takes a long time and over a large space. And aerated constructed wetlands condense that and accelerate it with enzymes and with oxygen, with air bubbles blowing through, which is powered by a small pump, which is powered by a small solar panel. So we get sweet water, which is really high quality, better than standard B, which is the discharge quality allowed. And with that, we are able to rear fish and grow hydroponic shoots in hydroponic houses. Now, you will find that I go back to the biogas section here. Combined heat and power is what we produce. And this combined heat and power, a certain amount of it can be bottled and sent straight back to the farms. In the farms, we designed half a 20-foot container where you slot in the tank, you put on the head just like you put on a gas cooker, and you press the button, a genset runs, and the farmer has got power. So, zero energy, zero water, and zero waste is our target, remember. And then we have to buy some imported and local raw materials, fiber and other feed materials for pigs, and some vitamins. And we have a partner who would set up a feed mill right there on the 10-acre land. Every single pellet that he produces goes straight back to the farmers. The farmers now have already formed a cooperative. We deal only with the cooperative. Finally, this feed mill is the biggest energy consumer. But, the power comes from the waste of the pigs. And this is our entire circular method, how we took a problem of those rivers, the socio-cultural problems, the airborne pathogens, the flies, the smell, and the rest of it, and redesigned it to resolve all the issues in this manner. So I want to talk a little bit about a little-known technology of purifying water, because the first thing people do is, oh, wastewater, I can't put it into the river. I got to have a mechanical system, mechanical water treatment system, and that's going to cost me a huge amount of money to build and a huge amount of money to maintain, because it's a power guzzler, and that could put spanner in the works of the viability of the entire project, any project you want to do, the water mitigation problem. So therefore, I want to talk a little bit more about our biomimicry type of system for these aerated constructed wetlands. So I take you through this journey. First, the pond is dug and the waterproof membrane is put down. And then the substratum of the gravel is put in, and plants are selected according to the water test. Depending on what toxins the water contains, the plants are selected, because the root system absorbs, canna lily absorbs a lot of heavy metals very well, okay, for example. And then they are planted, and after they are planted, they are allowed to grow, and below the surface, below this surface here, the water will be flowing, okay? And this is what will result in time to come. You will see some water on the surface, only at the last ponds, because there will be multiple ponds flowing out of one into the other and into the next and into the next. The speed at which the water flows through is controlled by the gradient of the pond. So gravity does all the work for you. You just have to, if I showed you here, I missed telling you, you see there will be a small little pump. There will be pipes underneath. And this pump can be run on solar, and these pipes will be having bubbles coming up into the roots. So a combination of oxygen from the air, the root system, and the enzymes, and the plant selected purifies the water. Exactly what nature does. Coming back here, this is how you'll end up with, and this is the part I really love. When we presented we faced multiple challenges when we wanted to get the EIA approval, and this was one of the challenges. How are you going to treat the water if you do not have a mechanical water treatment plant on your site? So the answer was this: no. How are we going to know the quality of the water that you discharge? So I said, how do you know the quality of the water that you discharge from your mechanical water treatment plant? But the mechanical treatment plant is accepted. It's the norm. So you don't need to monitor that, right? No, I'm asking you, answer my question. How are you going to monitor the discharge from this? Because it's new, it's never been done, so we don't know. But we came prepared. I said, first I'll buy a CCTV camera. And then I'll buy an IoT device. And then I'll load your enforcement officer's phone with an app. Okay? And that CCTV camera would be at the last discharge point. And in that pond will be fish. And you can choose what type of sensitive fish you want in there, and you will look through your app and look at the health of the fish. Are they turning upside down, or are they darting in and out? And you will determine the quality of the water. We use nature to fight absurdity. So the shoots that we grow to be mixed into the pellets are grown in containers, and they can be barley, millet, rice, or wheat. In 7 days old, they're good. They're very nutritious, and they can be mixed into pig feed as fiber and vitamins. Also, when you use fresh material like this, which feed millers never use fresh. Everything is processed or dried or things like that. This increases the digestibility of the animal. Digestibility is one factor which people often never look at, don't consider, don't want to know, just sell their product. Digestibility means if the animal can digest the feed and grow, you get money. Whereas if this low digestible food, it just passes it out. So digestibility improved, the business model definitely improved. Now, improving animal health is very dependent on energy. If you have energy for good ventilation, UV lights, hot water, and such, all consuming energy, but the farmer won't pay for that because he has to pay TNB. Now he's got energy from the waste of his pig. We also did some work with the government and contributed towards this, and it will become a guide document very soon, going through the final paces. The intent here is to first produce this document to go through the 000 methodologies that I speak about, leading up to the circular method, which will lead up to the 000, and then have farmers adopt it, improve their yield, improve their profitability, and then slowly convert it into a policy from a guide. I think I'm done. Yeah, thank you very much. So now the floor is yours. Would you like to join me, Vinesh? Any
So we have a B2C app that you can download. Depending on the community that you're in, we already now have about 6,000 collection centers in the Klang Valley, which generally is someone within a housing community that is signed up to be an agent, and you actually drop it to your neighbor, who is the collection center. And once that particular collection center has hit a threshold of volume, we go out and we collect it. So it's as easy as downloading the app and looking for the closest drop point.
What's the app called?
FatHopes Energy. If you go onto the FatHopes. And we're working with several brands like Speedmart to be a collection center as well. So we're increasing the number of drop points because for us the understanding of convenience, I mean, it needs to be as convenient as possible for it to be propagated. There's no minimum, again, for the ease of adoption. And that's why the collection centers were critical, because for us to service house to house is not viable, or for households to bring it forward is not very viable.
So I think MPOB also has a program. They actually have somebody come over and they even pay for it. Actually, yeah, MPOB. So are you working with MPOB on that for the procurement? Yeah.
So we do buy it today. Over the past decade, that has changed from being paid to price parity to us paying. But MPOB has had a few trials. We have been working with them on that. But for us, it's really we're focusing on the logistics infrastructure and the manufacturing. In terms of policy of implementation, there isn't a clear sight of how that can happen yet. But yeah, there are various different trials that are going on.
Anyone else? Any? Yes.
Actually, I'm quite interested with your aerated pond. I mean, I think that's really interesting. You know, one of the things that we also look at in the plantations, for example, during the times of droughts where we have, you know, difficulty to water the palm trees. If you, you know, what we do try to do is have a sort of a pond that covers and everything. It's not very practical. Utilizing this kind of technology, can we like, you know, because one of the things about collecting the rainwater is that it evaporates. So if we were to utilize this kind of technology, would it keep it from evaporating and essentially have a, I don't know, I'm asking you.
Very good question, it's valid. You know, one of the major causes of flood in the city is because we humans became so clever, we built drains. In the days of old, the drains were called swales. And swales had plants in it, grass in it. That would slow the water down and soak the water into the ground, recharge the ground. But now we have monsoon drains which run for kilometers and the water just comes hammering down. So the answer is a yes. If you have a pond, you cannot help but it will evaporate. But we are lucky, we are 95% humidity, so the evaporation rate is one of the least in compared to rest of the world, where humidity is much lower, then you get much more evaporation. But the plants do a wonderful thing, and so nature is perfect. The plants stop the water from escaping. It's not 100%, but it moderates the escape rate, and so you get a lot more water retention. Yeah. Also, as you are harvesting the water, you could have some advantage of the biomass of the plant depending on how big the pond is. The good thing about estates is they have land, and in corners where you don't use, this is really a good. But what would you do with the water before you release it, is it?
Yeah, well, you know, during droughts, they would
Yeah. And where would the resource come from? From rain itself, is it?
Yes, yes,
To retain it.
yes.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So you won't need a lot of remediation or mitigation work.
yeah.
You would just need storage work and
Yes.
and to store with a pond with floating plants, you'd have much better storage then.
Yeah, that's because that's why I was interested, because I was thinking that maybe the plants could stop it from evaporating it, because it's not practical to just cover it,
Yeah.
because then you get things coming in, you know, mosquitoes and all those things. So I was interested in looking at
Yeah.
your.
Mosquitoes we deal with by releasing fish. Any small fish would just gobble
Yeah,
up all the
if we're
mosquitoes.
gonna take the water, the fish will die. So I don't think we will want to do that.
Yeah. Sorry, 1 second. Somebody wanted to, Lawrence, yes.
Thank you, Vicky. I think that one question, very interestingly, I noted that, you know, the way how you actually have presented it in terms of the circularization, in terms of all that, you know, one thing to note is that, you know, from the national or the industries, you know, when we really look at in terms of the environment, you know, did our EIA now really looking at in terms of like, you know, circularization, when we all hear about adaptation and all that, you know, where is the things that, you know, driving that, you know, how that the industry waste from every sectors, you know, we are hearing from you on the so-called the, you know, the animal farming and all that. But I think that, you know, the entire pollutions and also in terms of all these so-called issues is actually coming from all sectors. So what I want to hear from you is that, you know, from, you know, your engagement with the various industries or sectors and all that, you know, is anyone taking a real initiative, or is the government actually looking at in terms of that coming out with a more of a blueprint to actually look at that how when all these waste coming from various sectors are actually looking at in terms of the greening environment? Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, interesting. I would say
We have to end
that
because the next
for me, I would not depend on the government at all. That guide document came out as a result of them coming to know what, because the people downstream complain about the water quality and all of that. Narim got involved, MGTC got involved, and then they came to know that I was there doing something, and then they said, come, you know, help us to write this document so that we can start our journey. But the driving factor is really money. It always has been, and it almost always will be. So if I can tell, today I'm also running a program with the government on cattle farms to get them to 000. And the intent of FGV Dairy is to have 1,000 farms, 5 acres each for smallholders to have supplementary income. So they want to test bed with me because it's the remote areas. Will they get milk? Will they need power which they don't have? Water is scarce. You know, how will you manage it? So those are. But the main thing here is that for commercial scale, we need to show them. As I said, I take this weak point of your business as usual, and I plug in a sustainable solution, and then the whole chain of your business jumps up in value. Yeah. I'm being told by the organizer that my time is up. Maybe I take one final question to be fair, a quick one. Yes.
I do feel you when you're talking to the DOE guys, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, I'm with Bukit Taga for 11 years, long time ago. We started off with detailed EIA, together until they have built up the 1 megawatt, okay, renewable energy. So it's exactly the polishing factors, all these things. One thing that you have the upper hand that you don't have the mechanized part. We do have that. I mean the sequential batch reactor, 4 plants there. All right. Okay, I'm a lot more interested that what you're going to do with your lake. Are you going to upscale it to a biodiversity, that kind of thing? But because I see the potential is there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The potential is there. Today, we want to ensure that we hit the first targets of the pain points from the farmer first.
Good.
And then we can do the other bells and whistles added on, you know.
Yes.
We really need to, this is a 30, so the guys there says, the Pachi said, what government? Barisan, DAP, everybody same.
Same.
Nothing,
All
you know.
same. Sorry,
And people like you, I don't know how many have come and then promise us heaven and sky and then disappear. I said, okay, I will never appear in front of you again until the problem is solved. Will you make me a cup of coffee? He said, what coffee? You can come and eat in my house if there's no smell like this around it.
Yeah.
It was really heartwarming. But yeah, we really need to look at resolving the issues,
Yes.
and then we can move beyond it.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
Lawrence,
So-
to answer your question just now about the blueprint, we have two blueprints here. One is from the Bukit Taga for the municipal solid waste. Then another blueprint is from him. We have two already. Showcase.
Yeah, Bukit Taga is exceptional. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time. I hope if you have any further questions, you can just walk up to me or us. But yeah, thank you very, very much for your attention. Appreciate all your participation. Thank you.